Hello, everyone. I'm so pleased to be with you today. I hope you can hear me well. I have some stories for you today. I call the whole thing Life's Journey and Fulfillment, and I'm so pleased to be speaking with you on Women's Day at this wonderful rising festival. I prepared this talk a long time ago, and we've all had to live through very difficult times. But times are getting better, and anyway, we are all here today. So let me go on and tell you my stories, life's journey and fulfillment. And I want to start by quoting someone I admired very much while he was alive, Joseph Campbell, who developed workshops and helpful activities for us all to think about our life's journey. And this is what he said. He said, we may have to give up the life we have planned to find and take up the life that is waiting for us. I think that's a lovely quotation. And I have another one for you here. Louis Pasteur, we're all obsessed at the moment with vaccines, and no one more than Pasteur was a great pioneer of vaccines. But he said this: chance favors the prepared mind. In other words, you have to be ready for something. Really, if you're looking for things that might change your life, you have to be perceptive. So let's think about living the dream and surviving the nightmares with these stories of heroines. And I hope that you find them inspiring. And I want you to think about, as you listen, the issue of the call to adventure. Most of these people that we will discuss were living ordinary lives, if we might call them ordinary lives, for a while. And suddenly there was a call to adventure. Something that might be amazing to do, might be risky to do, but would change their life. The call to adventure. I'm very, very keen on the issue of knowledge sharing and brain circulation and keeping our minds open. Innovation's a wonderful thing, but it only works if we keep our minds open to new ideas. I'm also very much an advocate of education without borders and across borders. And I've seen many dreams become realities. And whatever our position in life, we can all take what Campbell talked about as the hero's or heroine's journey. And we'll talk a little bit about that as we go along. But all good stories start at the beginning. So let's start at the beginning. And all good stories are about people, aren't they? And here's Rufus. I want to introduce Rufus. Say hi to Rufus. Um, he was 1 day old when this picture was taken. And we all get heroes and heroines to think about. And they all started like this. So whatever I say about great people, don't forget, they did all start like this. And that's how you and I started too. And here, you can look at it properly now, is a picture of my family. And there's Rufus, a little bit bigger in the front, taking no notice of the camera. And my family, 4 children, 8 grandchildren. And I'm sure that most of you have got wonderful families too, and will have them in the future if you don't have them today. Families are important. Now let's get on to the subject after those introductions. This was in the press not long ago. A story that girls have few role models in GCS science. And that is absolutely true. And it isn't just about science, is it? There are many untold stories of great achievements of women, and I'm going to tell you a few today, and I bet you haven't heard of all of them before. So we'll tell a few stories that hopefully will inspire us all to go forth and do more. And here's my first lady, Mary Somerville. She was a polymath. She was a trailblazer. Look when she lived, way back in the 18th and 19th centuries. And she was a scientist. She was also a campaigner for women's suffrage. She was one of the first women elected to the Royal Astronomical Society. She was a really amazing mathematician, and she studied all the things that you see coming up on the slide there. All those things she studied. She was amazing. And Somerville College, Oxford, I don't know whether anyone's listening that's been there, is named after her. She was a very liberal and wonderful human being. Here's another lady, later in history, but we're still with maths and science. The illegitimate daughter of Lord Byron, Ada Lovelace, a bit of a history around Cambridge with her. Was she the world's first computer programmer? This is the Babbage difference machine, which was made in 1880 in Cambridge. Amazing, amazing, really first computer, we might say. Not digital, but mechanical. And here he is. He was an amazing mathematician, Charles Babbage. He doesn't look very happy here, does he? He was a Cambridge man, and some people would call him the father and mother of computing. And he built that machine, and lo and behold, along came Ada and started to write programs for him. She wrote algorithms. We might call what she did algorithms today. She was great at programming Babbage's machine. I wonder what she would have achieved if she'd had a laptop. Well, we can only think about that. She was admired and feted by Prince Albert, much, I think, to the, let's say, relative unhappiness of Queen Victoria. But she was a great lady. She did amazing things. Now, Ada lived long before the revolution that changed our world in 1991, when we got to the World Wide Web, provided for us, the internet, by Sir Tim Berners-Lee. But what many people don't know is that Tim's mum, Mary Lee Berners-Lee, pioneer computer scientist, lived to a very ripe old age and was actually the leader of the team that designed the first commercial computer, the Ferrari Mark I, and that was in 1951. So there you are. Tim would not have been there to do the internet without mum. A bit distant from Cambridge, of course, this lady, Mathilde Hidalgo de Prechel, lived again many years ago, an Ecuadorian physician, a poet, an activist, an amazing lady. The first woman to graduate from high school in her part of the world and the first to receive a vote in South America. She was a doctor in medicine. She had a very, very poor family and a widowed mother. She taught herself lots of things. Tireless, lifelong campaigner for women's rights. Wonderful lady. Now, this is one you probably do know. You know her as Marie Curie. You might not know her as Maria Solomia Sodowska Curie, because she was born in Poland. There's a wonderful statue of her in the Technology University in Warsaw. How many lives did she save or change? Amazing. Men look to Marie Curie for one of the great scientists and one of the great fighters for humankind in the world. She had to fight against the politics of the day and the resistance to women in any kind of position, and to overcome the scourge of cancer. She was the first woman to win the Nobel Prize. She actually won two, and she was the first woman to be appointed a professor at the University of Paris. And she died of radiation poisoning. There's a great movie on the circuit at the moment, quite recently made, about her life, called Radioactive. So see it if you can. Another scientific lady, Barbara McClintock, won a Nobel Prize. She was a cytogeneticist, and she got her prize for medical physiology, the only woman to receive the Nobel in that subject. Another great lady. And just to make the point, these wonderful people didn't just sit in the lab all day. Her family life was not neglected. Here she is with her mother and her children, and music and art figured very prominently in her life, as well as all the other things she did. Now, we all in Cambridge know about the Eagle Pub, don't we, where Crick and Watson went over for beer and announced the discovery of DNA, the double helix, in 1953, and they got the Nobel Prize for it. There they are. Jim Watson, 25 years old at time. But what we should never forget, and I'm sure we don't remember often enough, that this lady, Rosalyn Franklin, played an amazingly important role in that research. She died young of cancer, and she wasn't recognized and acknowledged properly. It is true that history should be much kinder, because this lady was a pivotal part of one of the great discoveries of the world. Now, we've talked about Nobel Prizes, and here is the first Chinese lady to win one. Amazing. I mean, she won her Nobel Prize, I think, in 2015. She was a great physiologist. She's still alive. She's about 86 now, I think. She did malaria research. She struggled to get her position properly recognized in life, 2UU. And she really has worked amazingly hard. And there she is receiving her Nobel in Stockholm. And a reminder, you know, when we talk about global leadership these days, it isn't just science, it isn't just money, it's about belief in humankind and wanting to do something to help it. Here's another Chinese lady from much earlier. I bet many of you have never heard of Zhang Jingqiu. She was a political reformer and a woman's rights campaigner in a very difficult time in China. She was the first powerful woman in the Chinese Communist Party, and she fought for the recognition of women in emerging China. Unfortunately, Chiang Kai-shek's nationalists executed her in 1928. Now, coming up to the present here in Cambridge, some of you will know this lady. A different story, building bridges between science and business. This is Jeanette Walker, the director of the Trinity Science Park in Cambridge, who previously, and spent many years doing it, was the project leader of the Cambridge Biomedical Campus, which I know very well, and which is a wonderful biomedical campus. A great lady. Another interesting lady concerned with technology, Milo Villanueva, based in the Philippines. Very, very strong in telecommunications, a world leader, CEO of a number of companies, active in the whole of Asia, in growing businesses and in innovation. And another innovative lady, Zhu Yongfi. This lady's a billionaire. She may be the richest woman in China. Born in 1970 in a poor family. Her dad was a soldier. He became blind. Her mother died when she was 5. Only one of her whole family, this lady, Zhu, to attend school until 16. Became a migrant worker, just ordinary, horrible work in Shenzhen. Qualified herself in accountancy, dreamed of being in the fashion industry. And she was working in a factory that went bust. She started her own company at 22, and she now has at least 11 companies. She's all about lens technology, and her company has grown massively. It's number 1 in the world. And when people ask her, she's married with a son and a big estate in Hong Kong, they ask her about her success. She says, well, I was really driven by the desire to learn. It's a wonderful story. There's another Chinese lady, another billionaire actually, Zhang Jin. Urban development's her thing, making all sorts of buildings happen. And this was a press release talking about the lady billionaires that are coming to the fore in China these days. Here's another type of story. Here's another type of heroine. Some of you will know about Frida Kahlo. Because I've talked about science, I've talked about business, but that's not everything in life, is it? Art and creativity are a huge part of life. And this was an amazing person. She was eventually acknowledged and still is as an amazing game-changing painter. Her exhibitions have been held recently in the UK, very controversial, quite political at the time actually, married to a very difficult man who was also a great painter, Diego Rivera. She had polio as a child. When she was 18, she was involved in a horrific traffic accident. She was on a bus or a tram, disabled for life, lots and lots of problems, never free of pain, but always creative. Frida Kahlo, now recognized for the great lady she is. And talking of artistic things, this is a wonderful book if you get a chance to read it. Feminist Manifesto in 15 Suggestions. And Chimamanda Adichie is the Nigerian writer and woman's leader. Very, very interesting lady. Coming back to Europe now, from Romania, a lady inspiring joy through the art of porcelain, never had any formal training, studied art, started a company to be very artistic in porcelain, worked with women's associations as well, and doing all sorts of very, very interesting things in Romania with porcelain. Alina Anu Aliciu, very, very interesting person. Great story. Now let's change tack a bit and look at a different kind of lady and a different kind of heroine. This is Ros Savage. She sailed alone, the only person I think ever to sail the three great oceans, the Atlantic, Pacific, and the Indian Ocean, single-handed. And Ros is a good example of what we were talking about earlier when I quoted Joseph Campbell. We may have to give up the life we have planned to take up and find the life that's waiting for us. And that's what Ros did. She was an Oxford graduate lawyer, a very successful consultant. Off she went around the world in her boat. And, by the way, she was at the Perth Girls' School in Cambridge for her earlier education. She was actually in the same class as my daughter. And my daughter's now there as a teacher. And we recently were able to reunite them when Ros came to give a talk in Cambridge. You will all know this name, I suspect. Tanni Grey Thompson, spina bifida, terrible affliction. Didn't stop her becoming a world champion and a TV presenter, and also a member of the House of Lords, doing all kinds of things, chancellor of a university. An inspirational person par excellence. Another one you may know, of course, social enterprise. We talk about it today as if it's something new. It isn't. This lady, Mother Teresa, gave her life to very sick people in India. And here's another name you may not know, but someone who sacrificed a lot for others and has been very much a savior of people at difficult times and war times and times of oppression. Irina Sendler, a humanitarian who really did save lots of people from World War II labor camps. She was actually sentenced to death, but I don't know exactly what happened, but she escaped at the last moment. Now let's get close to the here and now. Some of you may know Fiona Nielsen, a PhD in bioinformatics from Denmark, passionate about defeating cancer. She worked for Illumina in Cambridge, but she always had this thing in her mind about starting her own company. And she had these amazing ideas. She formed a social enterprise after she left Illumina because they wouldn't let her start a company while she was there. She had to make that decision. She talked to me about it, said, you know, I've got these ideas, but no money. But I can't start a company while I'm with Illumina. What shall I do? I had to advise her that you either take the decision to leave or stay. She took the decision to leave, and things began to work very positively for her. A very nice story, and it's going on now. Another lady that I met in a different context, this is a lady, Maria Jensen from Turku in Finland. I met her some years ago at a conference. She came to Cambridge to visit us. And she told me that after the conference, she really wanted to do something she'd been thinking about for years and hadn't really had the courage to do, to leave university and start a company. And that's what she is doing. She's got an amazing company, actually, that provides DNA profiling for horse breeders. She had the call to adventure to do it, and she's done it. And I was very pleased to work with her and be her chairman for a while. She's now on her own, raising money and doing a great job. So she deferred her university studies and went in to run this company. And now it's a leading company in equine health and moving into other areas of veterinary medicine. Georgina, pictured here, had a very nice job in Parliament, quite a senior one. She was a secretary to important people in Parliament. She'd always had a really passionate series of thoughts about Cambodia, which of course suffered terribly, as you will probably remember, in the era of Pol Pot. And what Georgina's done, and I'm a trustee of her charity, she went to Cambodia. And she did, first of all, before she went, a one-year course at the Judge Business School, postgraduate course in entrepreneurship. And she started cafes in Cambodia. In Siem Reap is the first one. There's a picture of it here. And it's a wonderful idea. She raised more than 200,000 before she went to start the cafe. It's a social enterprise. And she collects books from around the world with the help of many people to distribute them in the cafes. And now she's actually up in the upstairs room running courses for young people who think they might start a company in Cambodia. So these are the stories that I wanted to share with you, and then go on and draw a few thoughts and conclusions from it, going back to Joseph Campbell's ideas of the heroine's journey. And Joseph says, well, at the top there's the ordinary world where we all are, and maybe we get a call to adventure. We can refuse it, but if we do accept the call to adventure, we probably cross a threshold into something very different than we've been used to. And there's a whole circle of things that may happen to us until we come back to the what might be considered the normal world. And so life choices are really all about answering calls to adventure when they come. And Joseph Campbell helped us to understand what that means. So here we are in the ordinary world. It's not a bad place to be. For most of us, it's a terrible place. For some people in some parts of the world. But for us, it probably isn't too bad, and it's for everybody. But we get this call. You hear the call. Something in your head says, I should do something else, or I ought to do something else, or I really would like to do something else. And that might take us into the unknown, into the dangerous, as the pictures here show. Something we haven't thought about before. But we can say, I refuse, I don't want to hear this. Or we can accept, and off we go into a new life. And if we do that, probably the first stage of our journey is to meet someone experienced who's been there before, or at least knows what it's like and can help us. That's a very good thing to do if you're going to start a business, for example. And we will cross the threshold. And stage two will bring us into contact with challenges. They may not be as severe as that, but I have to make my point strongly. We will find allies, and we will definitely find enemies. And stage three of the journey, we've probably got a plan by now. We may have to change it. We may have to adapt it. We learn as we go. There will be ordeals. There will be crises. And at the end of that journey, for many people, there is what we might consider to be victory or success. And then there will probably be a final stage before we return to the ordinary world. One final test may be that we have to undertake, and back we come to the ordinary life with what we might think of as an elixir to share. New knowledge, new experience, treasure for the people still in the ordinary world. So, that's the end of the storytelling for today. I'd like you to consider your hero's journey. What are you passionate about? How will you invest your life? What is or may be your call to adventure? Do you want an ordinary life? Nothing wrong with that. Absolutely. Carry on. What might people write about you, or would you care? How do you measure happiness and fulfillment? Remember what Patrick said? We may have to give up the life we have planned to find and take up the life that is waiting for us. Now, just a few final thoughts to bear in mind. You are unrepeatable. There is magic about you that is all your own, as said D.M. Dillinger. And never forget, you are more powerful than you think. It is true. Thank you for listening and participating. It's really been great to be with you, and I wish you all success after this Rising Festival on your life's journey. So thank you and goodbye.